Hi, my name is Dr. Christina Rahm, and I'm the founder of Under the Red Chandelier. I've worked for the pharmaceutical and nutraceutical industries. I've worked for governments and corporations, but I still have this burning passion when it comes to music and art and fashion and design. And I realized I have a lot to share. I want to share the travel and the fashion, the art, the music I grew up with, as well as what I've experienced. As I traveled, I picked up different colors and different designs and different things that I've brought back. In today's world, we have all this conflict. It doesn't matter what their religion is. It doesn't matter what their political view is. For all the creators out there, for all the scientists, from all the artists, for all of you guys, come join us on this series. We're here to connect. We're here to learn. Hi, this is Dr. Christina Rahm, and this is Under the Red Chandelier, and I have an amazing person that I just called Brooke Wilder, but actually her company is Brooke Wilder, which I love that story, and I'll let her tell you why she named the company Brooke Wilder. But Gina Marie is an amazing person that I met at New York Fashion Week when we did Catwalk for Fur Babies. I looked at all the clothes, and I thought, gosh, this is my favorite piece of clothing because it looked natural. It was beautiful. And Karen Floyd, who is the owner and main editor for Elysium magazine, really put the two of us together because she thought that with Brooke Wilder's designs and with the EnvironWear spray and clothing that we're developing, it would be a great partnership. So we are going to be showcasing Brooke Wilder and Gina Marie in some of our fashion shows with our EnvironWear textile protector. And I got to spend time with her when I went to South Carolina, so I'm introducing her today. I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and then explain Brooke Wilder and what you do and everything about your amazing fashion designs.
Hi. Well, about me, I have been doing this for about 10 years. I'm a mom. I'm an artist. I'm a nature lover. I'm uncomfortable in my skin right now. Um, I worked in professional industrial for a good portion of my life, and I was not happy with what I was doing. My son was graduating high school, so I decided I wanted to adventure into what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I kind of fell into fashion. A lot of people ask me all the time, have you been doing this your whole life? And I have not. I was a single mom, so I had to be a single mom and have a job. And, it didn't come into my awareness until later in life. So I started playing with that. And I went to school, took some classes at a local tech college to see if I could even draw. I mean, I knew I could draw, but I wanted to see if I could do what needed to be done. And then I enrolled at an online program with the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. And I took online classes while I worked full time and raised my son, getting him on his way. Um, and then I started to really think that I could actually do it. So I started looking for a place to actually create a business and start a new life because I was in Wisconsin at the time and I didn't see the kind of stuff I wanted to create working in that area. So I started looking and adventuring, and I found Charleston and fell in love. It's home. So I ended up here.
I love that story, and I think I really want to emphasize, our audience comes from all over the world, and they have all different kinds of experiences, but I was like you at one point in my life. I was a single mother, and at one point I was criticized because part of my education was online. I was in school for over 25 years, and I actually it was never an issue when I worked for pharmaceutical and biotech. They supported everything I did. They understood, for example, when I was a single mom and how hard it was and anything that they could do to support me. I'm being very honest, they did. When I became an entrepreneur and got into social media, and you know how difficult that is because social media is not really real, right? And I wasn't allowed to be in social media. The only reason I could be in social media when I worked with the government or I worked with biotech and pharma. And even when I was a CEO of healthcare companies, the only way I could do it was to check on my kids, but I couldn't like post things because I wasn't allowed to. And it was part of my contract. I couldn't. So when I transitioned into the world of being an entrepreneur and doing things that had to do with social media, it was such a rude awakening for me because I was like, wait a minute, this isn't even the true story. Because, you know, on social media, you usually post all these brilliant things and great things. But then I also, as a female, and this is pretty typical, got attacked for different things, like the fact that one of my programs was online, right? And I remember sitting there and thinking, this is so horrible because there's some people, and now COVID's changed that, right? Now everyone accepts, whether it's Harvard or Cornell or Johns Hopkins, you can do online, right? It doesn't matter anymore. But when I did it, I was like you. The reason I had to take some online classes is because I wanted to continue my education, and I had kids and I had to juggle a lot. Like I can tell you, I don't really, when people ask me, I don't know how I did it. You know, I mean, it's really important that people understand. I think when people are in a relationship where there's two people, and I can say this because I'm with Clayton now and he's so supportive, and the two of us run everything together. And it's the first time in my life that I've actually had someone that's basically co-parenting and partnering with me. I had religious people all over the world, people trying to make me feel guilty because of what I went through. And I really, it hit me, the ignorance of people, the ignorance of religion, the ignorance of judgment. Because let's be honest, no one's perfect. Priest sin, preacher sin, no one's perfect. There's only one God, in my opinion. You know, there's only entities above that are so much better than us. And I couldn't get over when social media came in my life and then being an entrepreneur, the criticism I got for one thing or another from what they saw on social media or what they were trying to do. And so as a mother like you, I think it's amazing, your story. Like the fact that you said you didn't know how to draw and you said that you weren't even sure. Of course, I've seen the stuff you've done. And by the way, you're incredibly talented and brilliant. And I don't believe that came from college. I don't believe what I do came from college either, by the way. I think it was persistence and honestly, God-given gifts and creativity probably helped both of us. And I give credit to God for that instead of myself because I don't believe any of it. None of it's a gift that I own. It's all for the world. And you've definitely touched me and touched other people through I would say it's almost a fairy tale approach to clothing. It's romantic. It's idealistic. It's really beautiful and enchanting. And I love the fact that we've been able to partner. You know, my big passion, I love being creative, but I also am a scientist. So my big passion is solutions throughout the world, whether it's protecting clothing or people. And you and I really connected as understanding that textiles can be really bad for our environment. In fact, what touches your body is so important. So if there's toxins in the clothes, in the dyes, in the fabric, then it's bad. And so I'd love for you to share the audience because, again, I think this partnership was not just about how beautiful your clothes are. If I would have just seen how beautiful the clothes were and not your passion for trying to do the right thing and use the right fabrics and use the right dyes, it wouldn't have been a connection. But because of your dedication to this, and I know how hard it is. It's hard to source fabrics. It's hard to source dyes that don't have anything in it that are bad for people. Yeah. There's such an ignorance in the world, including with me. Like before I got into this, I didn't understand how bad some of the fabrics were that I would wear. I didn't understand, like I would just say, well, this is a better price, or this is what's something I'm used to doing. And then I started realizing, even if it's the most exclusive brand in the world, if it's not made with the right fabrics and the right dyes, it's not good for me to use. If it's the cheapest fabric in the world that I'm trying to get a discount, but I'm hurting my body, it's not worth it either. And I use the word ignorant not as a criticism to anyone, but I think it's important that we educate people, not just on beautiful clothing, but we educate people on how we need to live a better life and we need to use better fabrics. We don't need to do child labor. We need to use refurbished things. the linens and the cottons and the silks and the hemps that are so good, the natural dyes. So I would love for you to share some of this with people, because when I talk to you, I even learn more than what I know. And I've done quite a bit of research on it, actually. So I'd love for you to share your vision and just what you know, and also how important it is to you that you provide healthy, beautiful clothes and not just beautiful clothes.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first started, I didn't know this was the route that I was going to go. But as I started sourcing fabrics, and I started looking at the materials, and I started to become more aware of the ethical conversations that are in fashion, it really kind of just morphed itself into part of who I am. I've always been a very, I don't want to say sustainable person, because sustainable to me means just stay the same. I'm more of a regenerative, what you take out, you put back in, and stewardship kind of person. Responsible, ethical mindfulness, kind of heart centered. And it just kind of started to make sense to me as I was utilizing fabric. I can't just throw this away. I can't waste it, because I wasn't raised like that. I was raised, we didn't have a lot. We were poor, so not desperately poor, but lower middle class. And there were points that we were desperately poor. So we learned how to be frugal. We learned how to be more conscious of our use of things. And so that became a part of the conversation. And then I started seeing and hearing more conversations and stories about how much waste goes into the planet that is clothing. And the amounts of it is mind boggling. It has literally shut down industry across the globe, because the waste goes into these less industrialized communities, and people start utilizing waste rather than purchasing new products. And so that then became a part of the journey. And then I started to learn about the skin and the body. And then, skin is your biggest organ, right? Now, you said ignorance earlier. Ignorance actually is just lack of knowledge. You don't know these things. A lot of people don't know these things
Yeah, it's not
because,
stupidity at all. It's just
yeah,
a lack of knowledge in an area
yep,
that, and as human beings, we only have so much time in our day to learn things, which is why
yeah,
we educate people on all of this, because they simply don't know.
right. And I think that I started to get my own education in this, and learning about my skin, learning about how all the toxins that were going into these fabrics. And then on top of it, and how all of these toxins were then impacting the planet in the water, and the microbeads going into the fish. And it just, it was like, well, this is what I want to do, but I do not want to create that kind of harm on this planet that I think is beautiful. And I think that this is, I mean, to me, this is heaven on earth, right? I mean, we live in a beautiful, beautiful world, and we choose how we get to live on it. And so mine is a smaller footprint, and I live by smaller batch quantities. That's why I do one of a kind. That's why I do small batch. I will do pre-order things so that I'm not making things that people don't need, that end up being burned in a ditch somewhere, which happens with big brands. And the skincare, so all of my fabrics, when I utilize fabrics, I try and use always natural. If I like to use organic whenever humanly possible. It's not always possible because it's not readily available. And some of it, like all things in marketing, end up being a little washed, greenwashed, media washed,
Yeah,
branded.
doesn't even. I'm going to tell you, when I source products, for example, um, their organic is not always organic, and I try to explain that to people. I look in, like with the products I make, I look into GMOs whether the seeds and plants have been exposed and whether the parent plants are being exposed. Clothing, like nutraceuticals, people will come out with a great product, but they don't test the product and they don't know where the source comes from. When we got into clothing, that was another gap. We have a mass group with Root, for example, and I'm the chief formulator there. And we launched, for example, 2 pieces of clothing on RPS, not even with the community, just with basically about 600 of our community or 1,000. We sold out within the first, 30 minutes of the call of the clothing. We had ordered in small amounts. It was more of a couture, which is what we're doing with you. We want to do different pieces of clothing. We want to showcase it. Actually, we were able to we sold it with the EnvironWear so they could spray it on the clothes. And we actually dyed the fabric as well and made sure it's a 96-hour process. But I was surprised really that we sold out of the 2 pieces. Those 2 pieces, I was going to say, even sourcing, when we look into it, like we had ordered clothing from a place, fabrics, that we found out they were using child labor, right? So we had to get rid of them. And another thing that ended up happening is when I went to work with Root, we've traveled to, I've traveled over 88 countries. Root's been in over 76. When I do, and I'm sure you know this, being in the industry, when I do a talk or I do a interview or a video, they would prefer me to wear something different each time. Yeah. So we did a contract basically that everything I wore for that month, up to 30 pieces, because they wanted different. And the previous company I'd worked for did the same thing with me. I gave the clothes back, and they're refurbished to sell, and they're sustainable. And then so anything I buy, we reuse. But the process was very complicated because looking into where the fabrics come from, has child labor being used, and some of the places we didn't know. We had to look into it even more. We have a staff here. You've worked with some of them. Jayla and Stephanie came to me and said, Christina, some of these fabrics are under conditions you wouldn't approve of. And again, I was ignorant, right? Because my approach is always, let's try something natural. And then I ended up getting very intrigued with, because I do like, and I'm sure you do too, and because I like fashion, there's some of the designer brands I love. And I can't go to a fashion show or on an event where I'm speaking in front of 10,000 people and wear something that's not, that doesn't showcase the brand and who we are. I just can't do it. Or we don't grow. And I do understand marketing and business. But what I was able to learn is the brands that did use, because some of your top brands really do use good fabrics. Yeah. They do sustainability. They stand behind not using child labor. But I had to really dig into that. And I've got to tell you, Gina, it's a long process to really be a conscious fashion brand that only partners with other conscious fashion brands. So I feel like I spent 2 years failing, and finally I'm getting, I'm starting to understand it more, because it's not like, I've worked with pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals my whole life. So it was a much deeper process. And so kudos to you that you care, because I've noticed a lot of people in this industry, especially with couture brands that are fashion forward like yours, they're not looking for what you're looking at. They're not looking at what are we putting on our skin? What are we putting back in the environment? And then I've noticed, I gotta say this one last thing. I always get upset about the women that are into the diamonds and the gold and the glitz, which I'm like you. I grew up on a farm. That's really not me. I on the weekends, I'm wearing a baseball hat and shorts and t-shirt or sweats. And my whole family knows that about me. I usually wear cowboy boots or high tops, tennis shoes. That's who I am. But that's not my day job. And it's not what I represent. So I understand both sides, but I have this thing because of what I do. You have the women that are beautiful, right, with the glitzy beautiful, like they look like models. And then you have the all-natural women that stand behind, I'm all natural. And I'm continuously doing talks about, why can't we just accept each other, not be jealous wherever we are? Like, if we want to be all natural, you never want to do Botox, you only want to use natural fabrics. Let's accept that. The other people, I don't care that you look beautiful and look better than I do, and that you have had plastic surgery if that's what you wanted, because that makes you feel better. I'm all for that. But what I do care about with both of those groups is that we're women. Because some of
Yeah.
the people that stand behind all natural or they don't want to spend money, they're hurting our environment more than the people that are the
Yeah.
opposite. And they're judgmental and they try to tell you everything. And you're like, no, let's do this. Let's all learn and educate each other. You can wear
Yeah.
the clothes you want. You can look how you want. You can be natural and wear what you want. But let me talk to you guys very clearly about natural and organic, right? Because a lot of times the people that think they're protecting our environment are doing things that are not good for our environment.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to approach it. So what I do is I continuously bring it up. I did a podcast with someone about breast implants, and I don't have them, but she was against them and talking about what was wrong with women that had them. And I said, I just don't feel that way. And I don't feel that way because there's different reasons. Some people have had cancer and have implants. I also think if it makes people feel better and look better, it's fine. But I don't feel fine about the fashion industry and about the fact that we've turned a blind eye that up to 70% of our pollution in our environment are from textiles.
Mhm.
And the fact that people don't reuse things, and the fact that people don't use sustainability, or the fact that you don't look at the fact that there's child labor involved and there's 7 and 8-year-olds doing clothing. So I don't know how you're presenting that to people, but I feel like when I met you, I didn't know all that about you. And then as I got to know you, I did know your dyes were organic or natural, right? Because Karen
Yeah.
told me, and the fabrics, and she told me what you stood for. But I'd love to see how you and I can work together to further educate people. I know you're shy. You didn't want to
Yeah.
present your no. I think you're beautiful. I love your smile.
Thank
And
you.
I love your spirit and your heart. So I would love for us to figure out a way how we educate people more without upsetting them. Because
Yeah.
when we upset people, then because everyone wants to be right in life and they want to know more than someone else. Especially I think women because it makes them feel better. I don't know, but I shouldn't say especially women, all of us, right? We want we
Yeah.
want to be right. Um, but we got to teach people this because I think 90% of the women, if they understood these topics,
Yes,
they
I agree.
would look into what they're buying and what they're doing
Yeah.
and how they're using things. They maybe wouldn't care if something cost $20 if it was hurting the environment, or $1,000 and it's hurting the environment. So I
Yeah.
really feel like I'm not doing enough. And it's hard because when I step into an environment where I'm meeting with people of prominence, right, of stature, or however you want to say it, they have influence. It's hard to get into that discussion too. So I don't know what your ideas are about it, but I think we have an obligation because we're not ignorant, right? We do know about it. I think we have an
Yeah.
obligation. So what are you thinking you will do about how will you approach that in the next 2 to 5 years so that you're educating more and more people on fashion?
Well, I think a lot of it is about conversation. You were talking about breast implants. I actually have a friend who I may get emotional a little bit, but she actually got breast implants, and there was all kinds of complications. And she was 33 years old, and she died a horrible, horrible death from the complications of this breast implant. So I understand that people want to do whatever they want, and I fully support it's your life. And at the same time, there are conversations that need to be had about what are the truths about your body? What are the possibilities? She was 33 and she ended up, her heart stopped during the surgery. They actually went to court and fought and created a bill because it was done in it was not done in a hospital. It was like a private facility. And her heart stopped during this, and they didn't take her to the hospital. It stopped again. And then she basically went brain dead and went into a coma and died about a week later. And so she was beautiful. It was actually, I think, a second, possibly a third upgrade of the surgery. So conversations like that, I don't think are mainstream conversations because people don't want to hear necessarily the downsides to things. And I
Well,
think
the doctors don't tell them. Like the doctor's obligation, it's like the vaccine, right? We got a lot of
yeah,
people that died from the vaccine. There's been a lot of heart attacks. Boys, we know now the CDC said guys shouldn't have gotten it at a certain age. I already knew that from Wuhan. Do I blame the doctors? No, because it was a government ruling. Do I blame the plastic surgeons that do the surgery? No, that's what they go in to do. But I do blame them if they don't educate the patient on, for example, if you have vaccines, you could be getting the vaccine, and the original studies showed with this, because I worked on, on them, that there's blood clots, there's issues with autoimmune disorders, issues with cancer. The upside of that is, right, maybe the vaccine will protect you in some way from COVID. Breast implants may make you look good and feel good, but here's the complications that can occur. Because I also have a friend that almost died from a breast implants. I think you have to educate people. That's the doctor's role. But if the doctor's not going to do it, whether it's the vaccine or whether it's a heart surgery or breast implants, they've got to educate them. Same thing with the clothing, not to keep going back to that, but I know from my background that there's people that have dermatitis, psoriasis, scleroderma, sarcoidosis, and that a lot of times it's an environmental factor that triggers that epigenetic, and it can have to do with clothing. It also can have to do with, do you go and get your clothes dry cleaned, which is one of the reasons for an environment spray. If you spray it on the inside of the clothing after it's been dry cleaned, it's getting rid of those toxins, right? It's ripping those apart. But here's where I always have a catch for me. I don't want to cause people to live in fear. I try not to put my opinion, which is why I try to always look at both sides. I had someone tell me the other day that, well, that's convenient that you have a middle ground opinion. I go, oh no, I have an opinion. I have a definite opinion. I'm just trying. It's like I told Clay, he was texting my kids, Clayton, about something that happened that had to do with, for example, the vaccine. And I said, I don't want to point fingers at what people have done once there's an issue. What I would like to further do, and I don't have the answers to this, Gina, I really don't. What I want to do is educate people and provide solutions that they can choose. Like your friend, you may not have been able to talk her out of the breast surgery. She may have known of all the complications. Some people get addicted to these improvements, right? Which I wouldn't even say they're naturally improvement. I do personally like things that look natural. I also understand, like someone asked me the other day if I've ever used Botox, and I said, I might use it once a year, sometimes twice a year. I don't use it as much now because I do laser treatments, because I have skin cancer. So the laser treatments I use help get rid of the skin cancer that I have. And then I also use my natural supplements. But I think you and I still can't change everyone. Like people may continue to buy and use fabric. There's some brands I want to bring up, but I don't want to get sued for bringing the brands up with clothing, that they're not doing things right. I just told her, Stephanie, you and Jayla had came to me and said this clothing brand is using children, and we had to change all of it, right? But I think what you and I can continue to do is educate women. I think that's what this whole thing is about, women empowerment. It doesn't mean we're all going to agree. It doesn't mean you've changed your friend's opinion. I have some really close friends that I think have gone through multiple liposuction, stomach surgeries, breast surgeries. I don't know how they do it. I have to be honest. I hate surgery. I hate anything that's painful. Stephanie set up this thing with Skin Farm, which I want to follow up, which I love, but it's a facial. That didn't hurt at all, by the way. It was like a microderm or something, facial. And the first question I think I asked was, does that hurt? And then they tried to talk me into like fillers on my face. I think Stephanie was there. And I was like, no. I was thinking of the pain. I was like, no. And then I love the way people's lips look. Stephanie knows this, when they get lip, whatever that is. But I was probably 30, I think, or 35, because I worked in derm and plastic surgery with Biogen IDEC. We did dermatology, immunology, and then I went into oncology and neurology. But think one of the favorite things I ever did was I worked with dermatology and plastic surgery because they would do like skin treatments. And I tried one time with one of my good friends. She's a dermatologist on my lips. I have to tell you, it was so painful. She was like, "This is not that bad of a deal. Drink some wine." I think she gave me something to take. I thought this is the worst pain I have ever experienced. I could not handle this. But if you ask me, would have I continued that if I wasn't scared of needles and the pain? Maybe, I don't know. For me, it was more of an issue. I worked a little bit with Botox. I actually just left a meeting at the Vatican with the gentleman that was the CEO of the company that launched Botox. And I had
Okay.
consulted on part of the project. I wasn't scared of Botox at all. It actually has a lot of health benefits, like for migraines and for sweat and different things as well. And so I saw the studies, and I also knew there's really rare reactions, honestly. Like I always weigh the side effects. But again, for me, it went back to pain. I was like, I can't handle the pain of like needles. And so I think all we can do is support each other, regardless of
Yeah.
our decisions, understand each other, and not judge each other, right?
Yeah.
Again, I
Yeah.
think that's something that's easy for women to do. It's easy for women to be jealous. It's easy to judge. I think the best stance is just allowing each other and supporting each other to stay home or work, right? You know
Yeah.
that that's a balance too, to do different things as it pertains to your body and different things with fashion.
Yeah.
But if you can have the best of both worlds, for example, if you can use natural products instead of pharmaceuticals, in my opinion, it's better. If
Yeah.
you can use natural fabrics and dyes and that touch your skin, it's better. If you can use the spray that we have to try to get rid of the toxins that are in the clothes, because you and I know that some of these textiles are horrible for people, the better.
Yep.
Now, if you ask me, do your clothes need the Environ spray? My answer is no, because you use natural, organic, and you source everything, which is very expensive, so that you know you're having what's good for the skin. But if you ask me, does it provide further protection? Yes, because it's designed through patent pending technology to protect against the environment just by spraying it and attaching it. Will it
Yeah.
protect people from everything? You and I both know this. No, we're still going to be exposed to things. But if we can live our best lives, try to give back to the world, because our environment, I get really upset when people don't understand how important it is. The land, air, water, our DNA is all connected. Like, it's very important.
We literally are stardust. We are made of the stuff of this earth. I mean, it's just simply true. And, they're finding more and more studies are finding the connection between our health and our relationship to nature rather than our consumption and our control of nature. And I think that a lot of I've been I have I'm not a social media person. I try, but I'm so busy trying to do everything that something always gives. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to be put in a box. And social media has created boxes to for performance and success that my natural rebellious inclination says no. But the truth is I actually, you posted something about linen this week, and it was like a trigger in my brain. It's like, oh, you need to get your fabric sourcing and all of that information on your website, because it's another thing that needs to be built out. It's like there needs to be much more accountability as to transparency where fabrics are coming from, where the sources are coming. I know that there is a lot of governmental things happening with B2s and, sustainability packs and things like that. For me, I think if you can't do it from a heart-centered space and from your own willingness to and wantingness to do better in the planet, that to me is just like more government stuff to kind of have to step through.
It is. It
Where
is.
if you're heart-centered,
Yeah.
right, and you are open to putting, okay, this is where I get my fabric. I don't care if you get your fabric from there, because that's part of the problem that we have in the industry as a whole, is there's so much competition and there's so much holding back of good things, right? Like now you have mushroom fibers that can be utilized as leather instead of animal product that is leather. But most of that leather or mushroom fabric, you are not able to obtain in quantities or in the stuff that you want because it's held up by other companies, basically contracting it through the makers of it. Instead of sourcing it abroad for everyone, only certain people can get it, right? There's the worry about patents, and there's worries about all of these things that happen in the industry, stealing people's ideas or too much competition, or it's everybody. There's an opportunity for everybody to put their voice out there in the fashion industry because there's like 7.2 billion people on the planet to clothe. So there really isn't really competition. And
No.
if we do it in a more ethical kind of way and we're more transparent, I think that some of that other stuff starts to fall away. There is a lot of gatekeeping in fashion, horribly. Sorry. There's a lot of gatekeeping that happens in the fashion industry. There's a lot of worry about who's going to get the more money and things like that. I actually have tried very hard to stay out of mainstream fashion industry because it definitely is a very competitive field. And that is where a lot of our problems came from, in that sizing had to be like fit in a box kind of sizing. And that's how we ended up where we are, right? Where we have so much clothing out there is that we had to try and manufacture mass quantities of clothing in specific sizing that doesn't fit most people, quite honestly. You know, most people don't fit a size small or a size medium, or the lack of consistency in any sizing, which then, you know, that's how these big things of these big quantities of clothing end up going into dumps and landfills and being burned, is because number one, you have to buy so much fabric because you have MOQs that you have to meet with these companies. You have to have certain numbers of pieces in order to get manufacturing of your pieces done. So when you go to a factory that does clothing, they say, well, you have to have 5,000 pieces. But for a small brand like myself, that's not even remotely possible. And that's how we end up with the mass consumption of it. And then, and even with the dyes came from speed. You know, it takes a long time to naturally dye stuff
I know.
when you're
Yeah.
doing it in small batch. You know, it takes longer, it's more inconsistent. There are more variables. So, you know, there are new processes that are happening in natural dyes that are making it a little bit bigger, but in the end, I think that it is learning about how things impact, not necessarily in a negative way, but in a, you know, this is the truth. It is,
It's just
and I know it sounds terrible when I say things like this, but it is what it is. You know, it's like these things affect everything.
yeah.
There's a chain reaction to everything that happens in life, and we can ignore it, or we can pay attention to it, and we can find solutions and stop doing the things that are hurting the planet. We don't necessarily have to fix the things that are hurting the planet, because typically nature will resolve that. Because I see that oftentimes when we try to resolve something that we have broken, then we create another broken rather than just letting.
Like with electric cars, you know, we have the
Yeah.
lithium batteries now. I will say the issue is the heavy metals that have been developed from the textile industry and from the automobile industry, that just changed everything. They don't leave our stratosphere. So heavy metals do not leave the land, air, water. That's why when I started working on patents to really do that, I was really focused on nuclear waste because of Ukraine, and I did a lot in Chernobyl, and just trying to figure out how do we break that apart so it's no longer toxic. I don't have the answers to the fashion industry. We started with the small step with Environ to make sure that we could protect people's skin defense. So that's what I want to make sure you have. So we wanted to make sure we protected people's skin and then the clothing. But it's such a huge issue. I'm like with you, I can't solve the past. We're in a little bit of a different situation because we have about 250,000 users a month, that buy nutritional products, and our audience is very natural. They're very into organic. They're very into eating healthy. But if you ask me, again, you can probably tell, is that my only target? No, my target is providing solutions for the world for the future. I can't go back and solve everything. It's overwhelming. And I just was filling out a questionnaire in my office about, do you sleep at night? No. How many hours of sleep do you get? 2 to 8, usually 2 to 3. Right. I was answering this questionnaire, and I have to be honest because I have an appointment with this concierge doctor. And what keeps you up at night? I'm worried about the world. I have to let it go because you can't solve everything. And I'm like you, we can't go back. And a lot of stuff does auto correct itself. But what you and I can do is educate people. And I'm like you, where I get stuck at night, right, or during the day is, okay, I just solved this issue. But where I really hold myself accountable is, did I create another issue, right? By solving this, did I make myself feel better? But did I? So with clothing, I think if we each take the small steps, knowing we can't be perfect, we're in a different situation. We can buy in mass quantity, but finding the right stuff, we actually have not chosen to do that. Like with the Root community, they're going to have basic clothing. And I told you I'd like for us to collab on a couple of pieces that we can produce. It's a little bit harder, but we can do it. We have just basic like black, right, leggings and shirts. It's nothing. But we did offer, like I said, some of the couture to see how they would respond, and they responded really heavily. We are like you, though. We don't go out, and you probably know this, in our partnership with you, we don't buy mass quantities because we would be wasting them. Now, if you ask me, would I wear every piece you have? Absolutely. Could I wear those every day if I could afford it? Yes. I would wear that every day because your clothes are a work of art, and I think one of the things, I know we have to put it into the podcast, but I wanted to tell you, you have courage. One of the things I noticed about you was I love you're an introvert, and I love that you're a thought-provoking person that sincerely cares and is not just saying you're trying to make a difference. Your clothes tell a story. And part of the story, in my opinion, is of a single mother that created a brand and didn't let the world stop her based on what they thought. Because a lot of times the world will say, if you made this mistake or if someone hurt you even, like I go back to this all the time, when people get divorced for affairs and abuse, they should never stay in an emotionally abusive relationship. I will never support a woman in that. I will support her in saying, I love you, I hope you get out. But there's no supporting that. And so the whole ideology that was put on religion of if you do this, this, and this, it's a sin, you're going to hell, I don't buy into at all. In fact, I encourage women constantly. And the preachers and priests and rabbis that I'm friends with, candidly, are on the same page with me that I respect. They try to tell their followers that what I try to do is not put people in a box. And being a single mom is hard. And being a single mom and developing a career, feeling like you've made a mistake and feeling like the world judges you is hard. Your sweet soul and kind heart are one thing, but your ability to also succeed in an area which I think is extremely aggressive, which is fashion. I also was in music publishing. I actually have 2 music publishing companies. That's another cutthroat area. It's a very hard, and just so you know, Gina, so is healthcare. There's more lawsuits in healthcare than any area of the world because there's so much money, right? And so and you would think healthcare was about people getting better, But healthcare has a component that is a very monetary component.
Yeah.
So you and I can't solve the world's problems, but hopefully what we can always do, and that I will always offer if you're interested, is partnering in different ways. And hopefully we'll figure out a better, a large scale way to manufacture things. But I'm like you, the truth is buying things in mass volume and then not selling them and eating that cost is really hard to do. And I
Yeah.
think it's magical when everyone doesn't have the same outfit. Like, I felt horrible when we sold out of one of our the green. Yeah, I felt really bad, and I have one of it's a green dress. I think you probably have seen me in it, but I've already worn it, so I have to give the green dress back. I'm like, I really wanted that dress. It's like, I really wanted that. And then there was a white outfit that my husband was like, if I could see you in any outfit in the world, it would be that white dress. And I'm like,
Yeah.
sorry, we don't have any of that dress. I gave that away. but but I really I want to make women happy. I want them to feel beautiful. And again, I don't care if you're someone that has taken the all natural route in life or if you've chosen a different route, because we all have different stories. We have different things that have happened to us. I mean, some women are constantly, I always say, I'm so glad I wasn't the beautiful girl in school. I'm so glad that I was not the perfect person that everything came easy to. You know, I was in middle school and high school, and I was known as being pretty smart, and I was known as being pretty tough and funny. But I never really wanted to be the most beautiful girl because I felt like that was something you can't live up to every day. And so I doubled down on education for me. You know, that was really and still is my passion. But I do understand there are some women that are so beautiful and they continually have to hit that bar. And
Yeah.
it's exhausting. Like for me, it's even exhausting when someone sends a text that says, you look like you've lost weight or you look like you've gained weight. And I'm like, why does it matter? I'm just
Yeah.
me. And the truth is, when I'm tired and I travel, sometimes I don't even have time to eat. And so when I start losing weight, it's usually because of stress or not being able to sleep or working too much. I put myself in check. I'll just tell you a personal thing about me. I've gotten down before to 90 pounds. At one point I wore a size 12 kids clothes
Oh,
because what happens is I don't actually miss food. So it's a really weird thing. I don't miss food. I really don't
yeah.
like,
I don't even-
but I have people here in my office that make sure I eat now. So I actually, if I didn't have like Stephanie and now Christine's here and my husband, I probably wouldn't eat. I'd
Yeah.
probably be like, oh, you know what, I'll eat later. And then when I get home, I start working at home actually. And then I would miss that. But because I've surrounded myself with these amazing people, I eat. So I don't think I'll get down to 90 pounds. But my takeaway from my life now is I've made so many mistakes. I've failed so many times. The one thing I am able to do now is surround myself with good people that are perfect because I'm not, but we all try.
Nobody.
Nobody is. And I think you're one of those people. I think Karen Floyd is too, by the way. I have
I
so
love
much
Karen.
respect for that
Yeah.
woman. When I second guess myself, I'll give you an example. I went back to like I was treated bad at one point in my life and I allowed it, right?
Mhm.
And it was a bad cycle. So now when I see men that say something degrading or that say something that they shouldn't say about women or treat me that way, in the past I would have ignored it. And now because of women like Karen Floyd and because of men like Clayton Thomas, who's my husband, I will say that's not appropriate and we're going to do something about that. And that's my key to success is the people that are around me. And I'm thankful that you're one of the people around me.
Yeah. I'm very grateful to be one of those people because I will tell you that I didn't expect this journey. I am gobsmacked like all the time. Like I'm gonna pinch myself.
Well,
I mean, they showed it New York Fashion Week, and I mean, for me, that was like I never even saw that on my horizon, quite literally.
Well, I
So
didn't either, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. But I'm going to send you. Karen hasn't sent you the invite for Elysium. I'd love
yeah,
to fly you in for that event and have us sponsor that for you. And I don't know if you want someone to come in, but that would be wonderful. I'm only there. I have to go for a day, and then we won. I don't know if Karen told you we didn't win. We're the finalists for the New York Film Festival.
yeah,
Clayton and I co-produced that, but I have to fly to New Delhi to meet with some people in the government. I think our president's going to be at that meeting too, but it's a huge meeting. So Clayton is actually, and you're welcome to stay for this too, because we'll have some of your pieces. He's
Okay.
going to show on Times Square, the fashion show, and I think Patrick. And then we have LA, but we're planning on dividing your pieces so that we're
Okay.
showing them in the different events, and we'll reach out to you. Please reach out to me if you don't get a response, but we're planning on bringing in some pieces into the Hamptons, bringing in some pieces into LA and in New
So
York, which is why I need to pick out more pieces from you. So you've got to
yeah.
put stuff in front of me so that we can showcase more of your stuff. And that's why I was trying to make sure we got what you sent. And then I need you to come up with some fabulous pieces that you and I would both love. And hopefully they all will have a magical component like the ones I've seen that make women feel beautiful, because I think part of life is not just, it's just feeling loved and feeling beautiful. And everybody's beautiful. I personally don't like the perfect look, because I think it's a false sense of who we are. Instead, I just love people to look different. I don't think it matters what size they are. My issue I have with sizes, I'm like you. The issue is if we launch something and we can't get that out there and sold, you eat the cost as a company. And I think that's a reality we have to tell people. It's
Yep.
much easier the middle area, but I'll give you an example. I went from a medium to an extra small recently. And that was not planned, right? It was
Yeah.
because, again, there were different health issues I had to address and then just working so much. But I want us to be able to continuously put in front of people. I do love, just to throw this out there, I love the clothing that can be worn by any size.
Yeah.
I do. I think
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Like the dress we had that was the green dress designed, it's for all sizes and it looks equally beautiful. I actually think it looks prettier in someone that's not too skinny, but it still
Yeah.
looks beautiful on people that are really, are skinny. It looks beautiful. And I love that. So I would love for us to do more and more of that so that women, I wish it all said one size fits all, because you could
That
wear,
would
I know, but
that
that's
would
okay. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that would, that would be magic, right?
Yeah, it would. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
impossible, but anyway, I look forward to that. Please reach out to us about the Elysium event. It's important, I
Okay.
think, that both of us are there. We have the hard book coming out with Karen. We have the documentary, and then there's more and more stuff this next year. And Karen and I have talked, and we're just very excited that you're on this journey with us. So,
Yeah, very grateful. I am very grateful. And, one of the things I do is I make stuff because I want women to feel bold and bodacious and beautiful in everything that they put on. I don't want to create a world of cloning. I want everybody to be an individual in who they are. And, Brooke Wilder actually is, I tell people she's my inner wild child. She's that part of me that didn't feel like she could be seen when she was young. And when she was seen, um, she kind of got pushed back in a box. And Brooke actually means water and life and movement. And Wilder is an old English term that meant one who was unafraid to adventure. And so that is kind of, I'm getting emotional. That is kind of
I
the
tried to. Yeah, I
that
love
is the essence of who my girl is. She is natural, she is dramatic, and she is romantic, and she loves to play in her clothes. And I just came on to my new kind of tagline, if you will, but it's basically wildly creative, sorry, wildly creative and ethically crafted. And that
it.
really is, what
Yeah.
we do, and the more we go, the more we do, we're trying to get more conversation about our ethical standpoints, about our fabrics that we use, and also about the women that we want to support. And that, together as women, we can rise together and change the world, quite literally.
I agree, and I love that what you're saying, because I hope every woman feels beautiful. It doesn't matter how old you are. I think some of the most beautiful women are 80, 90 years. My mom is beautiful. She's 81, I think. The And I think she's more beautiful than a 20-year-old sometimes because she just has that natural beauty, but really it's just her heart and her soul. So I hope that everyone has that takeaway. Being skinny or having a look that looks like a Barbie or whatever is not the only thing that men or women like. We all need to celebrate our differences. We need to understand that there's not one person, in my opinion, and I mean this is not fake. I don't think that someone's more beautiful than someone else just because they have a certain outfit on or they are wearing makeup. We're all beautiful in our own way, but I want people to follow you at Brooke Wilder at the Instagram. So it's BROOKEWILDER, right?
Yep.
Underscore
Yep.
Instagram. And then your website, can they go to a website?
Yeah, the website is brookewilder.com. Yeah.
So I'd love for people to check your clothes out. And again, I would buy every piece if I could, but we do want to partner with more pieces because they are magical. And your heart comes out in your pieces, and not just your heart, but your intention and your true love for women and other people comes out. So that child, whoever treated you bad or what you went through, because I know we've all gone through things, right, where we've been treated bad, you're making such a huge difference. And I want you to be a motivation to people of how you can turn things around and change. There's never a stopping point. There's always a room for improvement and growth in life, and people can't be discouraged because they failed at one thing because they're going to succeed at something else, and you are a role model for women. I see you with your models, by the way. They love you.
And I love my girls.
I can tell you, do. My daughter, when she left your house, I don't know if you saw the pictures. They were beautiful. And my daughter's very introverted too and very shy. And she just loved. Well, she loved being there. And actually, Joy tried to get her to model again, and she wouldn't. So that's probably her only time. She had that classic look. But what I was going to tell you is you're a great example to my daughter and to other people. And thank you so much for that. I look forward to us doing another podcast, and we will definitely see each other in New York.
I will see you in New York. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, so much.
Yeah. Bye.